Welcome to Abraham Lincoln's World. My name is Ed Steers. I'm the author of several books on Abraham Lincoln, including Blood on the Moon, The Assassination of Abraham Lincoln, and Lincoln Legends, Myths, Hoaxes, and Confabulations about our greatest president. And while most of my books are nonfiction history, I have written a novel on Lincoln's assassination, which I'd like to share with you today. Its title is Caesar Must Bleed, which I took from a letter that John Wilkes Booth wrote to a local newspaper in Washington, explaining his motivation or justification for the murder of Abraham Lincoln. I wrote the book under a pseudonym of Catherine Rue, for reasons which I needn't explain here. So for those of you that might be interested enough to purchase the book, you can find it on Amazon.com, and you can still find it under my name, Edward Steers Jr., even though I used the pseudonym Catherine Rue. Chapter 1. I love peace more than life. Have loved the Union beyond expression. For 4 years I have waited, hoped, and prayed for the dark clouds to break, and for a restoration of our former sunshine. To wait longer would be a crime. John Wilkes Booth. The young man stood in front of a large, ornate mirror, examining himself from various angles. The odor of sweet lavender filled the air around him. Turning his head to one side, then the other, he seemed quite pleased at how handsome he looked. The soft curls of black hair contrasted against the pale color of his delicate skin. The dark eyes and handlebar mustache set off his perfectly formed lips. He quite possibly was the most beautiful man in the entire country. Most people thought so, and he knew it. "Ah, yes," he said, waving his hand in a theatrical gesture. "You do me great honor, sir. None in New York or Boston can compare." "Sir," the barber said as he gently brushed away the few loose hairs clinging to the fashionable coat of his famous patron, "it is you who do me honor. It is not often a simple barber like myself has the privilege to serve so famous a person as yourself." The two men looked at each other, then broke into laughter. "Sometimes I think you are as slick as your finest hair pomade, my Corsican friend. And you, sir, are never far from the stage you so passionately adore." To the casual onlooker, the two men presented a sharp contrast. A simple barber who, despite his profession, lacked grooming, while the other was the very essence of elegance. So different, and yet the two men shared a bond that made them as close as brothers. They shared a common hatred of Abraham Lincoln, the man they derisively referred to as Abraham Africanus, the original guerrilla. John Wilkes Booth was America's leading thespian, a matinee idol that women were drawn to by his charm and good looks. Men also found him compelling as a man's man, whose magnetic personality could hold an audience spellbound for hours, whether on the stage or in a bar room. Wherever he paused, men gathered around to listen to his voice and marvel at his mannerisms. It mattered little what he said. It was how he said it that drew their rapt attention. Young Wilkes was born to fame. His father had become the country's greatest tragedian, thrilling audiences with his portrayal of the evil Richard III or the treacherous Iago. But unlike his father, whose success was thought to be due at least in part to a touch of madness fueled by alcohol, young Wilkes achieved fame for his beauty and graceful athleticism as he swashbuckled his way across the stage. By the age of 22, he had become a very wealthy actor, earning thousands of dollars a month. He had few faults, and lack of generosity was certainly not one of them. He had made a small fortune at play acting, just as his father and older brothers before him. The New York World recently described him as, quote, a star of the greatest magnitude, end quote. Booth agreed. Writing to a friend, he mused, quote, my goose does indeed hang high, long may it wave, end quote. Well, my good friend Ferrandini, today just might prove to be a new beginning. Booth placed a silver dollar in the outstretched hand of the barber, who, bowing ever so slightly, slipped the shiny coin into his vest pocket. It was 4 times the normal charge, but not unlike Booth to tip so handsomely. You are too generous indeed, the barber said, his eyes widening. And should you have need of my services, I am always here. I know I can put my trust in you, my friend, Booth said, taking one last look at his handsome visage in the grand mirror. I may call on you soon, and can assure you there will be riches enough for all of us. It is not riches I seek, but the utter destruction of that nigger-loving baboon who is destroying our country. My only regret was failing when the moment seemed so sure, he said with a scowl. I was betrayed by one who claimed to be in sympathy with our aims. Just what happened, my friend? Booth asked. Are you at liberty to tell me? The plan was perfect and would have worked, but for the loose lips fueled by alcohol of a former compatriot, the barber said with a scowl. Former compatriot, Booth said. He is no longer with us, or anyone else for that matter. He and his treacherous tongue float beneath the docks. Cipriano Ferrandini was no ordinary barber. His Corsican upbringing had trained him well in the art of villainy. He would just as soon cut a man's throat as his hair. He was a revolutionary who believed the dagger was as much a part of politics as the ballot box. He was an ardent admirer of the infamous Felice Orsini, the Italian Republican who plotted the assassination of France's Napoleon III. Orsini came close to assassinating the French emperor, only to fall short. He was executed for his crime, but won the admiration of revolutionaries the world over, like Ferrandini and Booth. Although Booth admired Orsini, he told several of his friends that he had plotted the assassination of Napoleon III. He would not have failed. A refugee from the political intrigues of Europe, Ferrandini found the thuggish elements of Baltimore's underlife to his liking. He had achieved a certain notoriety among his ilk 4 years earlier when he came within a few hours of killing the president-elect as he stopped over in Baltimore on his way to his inauguration in Washington. The plot failed when the president-elect, alerted to the treacherous plot by the skillful embedding of Alan Pinkerton's detectives into Ferrandini's circle of thugs, changed his schedule at the last minute, passing through the city 9 hours ahead of schedule, leaving his would-be assassins in bed, fast asleep. Having missed a golden opportunity to free the country from the fanatical grip of black republicanism, and embarrassed at having been fooled by Lincoln's maneuver, the enraged Ferrandini swore he would not rest until he saw Lincoln dead. Now he had learned of someone else who held the same passion to rid the country of her evil leader. Booth, Ferrandini thought, was just the man who might be able to do it. You need not censure yourself so harshly, Booth said. You were betrayed. Which seems to be the way with that abolitionist crowd. They know not the meaning of honor, or loyalty for that matter. Rest assured that I do, and will place myself at your service. Thank you, my friend. I know I can count on you, and for that I am grateful. When, may I ask? Soon, my friend. Soon, if all goes to plan. Booth did not dare tell his friend that he had no plan to kill Lincoln. A dead Lincoln had no profit. A live Lincoln, in the care of Southern leaders, was far more valuable to the cause of independence. The daring plan Booth hatched was to capture the president and present him as a gift to Jefferson Davis. Such a gift held the promise of freeing thousands of desperately needed Confederate prisoners languishing in northern prisons. It was an idea that had grown inside Booth's brain over several weeks and had come to possess his every thought. He would be famous, more famous than he currently was. Fame, not money, became the engine that drove his very existence. The two men shook hands, and Booth passed through the door of the barber shop, and turning to his right climbed the short flight of marble steps that led to the lobby of the luxury hotel.